business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
Sunday, everyone. Happy Tiff Talk Sunday. And I am so happy to be back before you guys on the Sunday. This past Tiff Talks episode we released on a Tuesday just to show proof of how Kinshay and I live our life with boundaries, breaks, and balance. And now we're back on a Sunday with an all new episode, which is actually episode 3 of 4 for this mini series centered around wellness, health, wellness, and wholeness. So today we're going to be discussing a hot topic for some and a pain point for others. But just the same, I anticipate that the conversation will be awesome and great. And in honor of what surprisingly and kind of funny to a certain extent is Financial Literacy Month and Stress Awareness Month, April, we're going to be discussing today money moves. So we're going to be talking about financial literacy, how that plays into one's own life in a very candid conversation with an avid supporter of Tiff Talks, a dear friend of mine, one that definitely has access to bill money, but it's also my alibi in the same in the same being. But I'm excited to get into the conversation today. For those of you that are new to this platform, my name is Tiffany. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. And this platform, JKC Marketing Tiff Talk, was built on 4 pillars, including media, outreach, engagement, and empowerment. And we pride ourselves on being conversation starters to be able to engage the community, to bring awareness in regards to taboo topics that are impacting minority communities like myself and those that you see on this platform. So I am going to hand it over to our guest today so that he can introduce himself, and then we'll jump right into it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Larry Reese. Real good friends with Miss Tiffany. Been knowing her for about 20 plus years. Right? Love her to death. You got to know it to love her, right? Yeah, so nice to meet everybody.
All right. So what our guest did not say is that we generally talk money and money moves all the time. And anytime we have a conversation beyond 30 minutes or more, it generally spills into investments and assets and money and savings and what's next and how to move next. So this conversation is definitely going to be a very candid one, and an extension of conversations that we've had before. So to kind of get started in the conversation for today regarding the talk topic, believe it or not, there's so many people that experience financial trauma, and financial trauma really just being having a negative connotation of money and their relationship with money for one reason or another, whether it is because it simply wasn't discussed in their home. And what I find is that the financial piece of the pie in our community is one of those, what goes on in our house stays in our house type of conversation. So you don't really hear a lot of conversation about financial education, let alone literacy. And when it comes down to education versus literacy, we understand very clearly that we don't all start from the same starting point. We live in what's supposed to be the land of the free. However, education, exposure, and literacy is not always free. And because it's not always free, sometimes that associates people with having financial trauma or having, pain points that they're just in fear of bringing awareness or having conversation about money. So the hope today is having a conversation to encourage people to engage and keep the conversation going. And just for starters, my first question for you is, do you feel that someone's upbringing has any bearing on their relationship with money?
Very much so. I believe that what 1000%, either the good or the bad. Um, I feel like the one's upbringing can show you either how to spend the money or how
Mm,
to say, or what you should be doing with the money, right? Uh, you should be able to, as you get older, you start to see, all right, well, I see why my parents did something a certain way, or you start to realize, like, all right, I shouldn't, my parents shouldn't have done that. I think this is a smarter choice for me. To break this generation curse to be able to move forward, right? Is it one generation should always take two steps forward to
mm,
grow.
right, right. I think even like in regards to this platform, we didn't talk very much about money or bring awareness to money until maybe about 2 years ago. And for me, that was because my upbringing and my relationship with money at that time, then versus now, is very different, you know? And I think everyone has like those pivotal moments in their life, in their upbringing, like you said, when it comes to being able to see how money is used, how money is spent, how money is leveraged or not. And that plays into their own relationship with money, and then how they carry on as adults, and then ultimately what they model for their children. But what I also see is that sometimes when it comes down to men versus women, there's also like a difference in money and how a person moves money, whether they're a man or a woman, and even like leveraging money or even the lack thereof. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you think money across
Yeah,
the
man.
board when it comes to men versus women is different, or man versus women's relationship with money is different?
You're trying to start a war now. um, yeah, so um, yeah, so financial planning with or financial guidance or money period is viewed different between the man and the woman, in my opinion. In some cases, I think man is more willing to take risks and invest and make mistakes to just to on a hey if I invest here I think it's going to be great for us versus your significant other, which is your wife or whatever it may be, like I think we should just save the money for rainy days, right? I think that plays a huge part of how you grew up. I think men are really will take that risk because they're like, all right, well, my parents didn't go as far because they didn't invest, or my dad or we got us out this certain point because he invested young, and my mom always had a stash to bail dad out, right? Yeah, I think it's just I do think it's the difference between a man and woman, how they invest money and how they see money. That's a huge that's the huge part. That's the huge part.
That's crazy that you said that. One, because I grew up seeing my mom save money, but
Yeah,
my dad spend money. So I think I kind of had the perfect balance from both of them. And I could always remember my dad saying, because I would be like, oh my God, you're supposed to have a rainy day fund. And then I would get mad, like pissed when I had to spend from my
yeah,
rainy day fund. And my dad would always say, well, what's the point of having a rainy day fund? What's the point of having an emergency expense account if you're not gonna use it when you have an emergency? Be grateful that you have the money to spend when you have an emergency. And this was like anything from something being broken at the house, or having to pay extra on a bill, or having to buy a new tire. But it was just the fact that my dad was always so comfortable with spending money, and he didn't have a problem with dishing out money versus my mom always having the savings, like you said, like having the savings, but another savings on top of the savings type thing.
yeah,
So for me, I think I got a pretty good, healthy balance from both of them. But one thing that I feel that I lack, or that they feel short of as parents, I guess you can say, when it comes to financial education and literacy, for me, is I didn't learn about wealth and assets and credit until I had my own, and I
yeah,
was in a place where I wanted to, develop those things, because that was just something that they didn't teach, or something that they didn't share with me. So for me now, knowing what I know and having have had my own, I guess, financial burdens that I had to overcome. I'm
Yep.
at a place now with my children where it's important for me to not just, make them aware of how to spend money, not just make them aware of how to save money, but how to leverage money. And I think it's important that we all, like you say, overcome those generational burdens or overcome those generational quote unquote curse so that we can do better and give better to the next generation. So for you, do you have any generational burdens that you've experienced yourself, that you've seen, that you've overcome, that's changed kind of your narrative for your next generation?
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna say I was grew up dirt poor but poverty, right? We didn't grow up with a lot of money, so that's the generation curse. That I think I speak about. This is about many people. That's how they grew up. Didn't grow up with money, right? So it's something you try to fix in this generation, so therefore you don't pass it on to your next generation, right? Um, yeah, so we work hard to move forward. So therefore, you don't have to experience it. Our generation or our kids don't have to experience the same thing as we did to push us forward.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's like a generalized kind of um burden or
Yeah.
generational burden we all have. Like I don't recall having struggles growing up. Not that I knew that we had any or we didn't have any, but I don't recall them or ever feeling them. So I agree. Like I grew up with my immediate needs being met and like my wants being acknowledged,
Yeah.
here and there. And as a parent now, that's one thing for me. I don't want my children to ever feel a struggle or have to experience a burden, whether it be financial or not. And I will say, because of that, they're privileged to a certain extent. But the goodness in being privileged is they have the opportunity to learn from my experience so that the
Yep.
next generation after this generation will be at a better place.
Yep. Give them a
So I,
starting
I
point.
completely agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give them a starting point. Give them some. Our parents gave us a starting point, and I think we just continue to um, move the goalpost. So therefore, give our kids a better starting point to push them out there further into the world to do more. Right.
I like that. I love that.
And
Now, everyone's relationship with money translates differently. And as I've gotten to the place I am in my life, like for me, it's all about wholeness and establishing wholeness
yep.
and being secure and empowered in my finances. I want to be able to focus on worthy expenditures. And worthy expenditures translate for everyone differently, just the same. For me, it's about being able to budget, being able to scale my income, being able to have a savings beyond my rainy day fund that I don't like to tap into, but being able to make space and save space for those things that I truly desire. So, although we are in like the second quarter of the year, some people are still getting it together like me. And I just want to know, like, from your perspective, do you ever set any financial resolutions for the year? If so, can you share one that you feel you've excelled at and one that you feel that you've gained, the greatest lesson from?
So every year I have me a plan. I never end one year without going to the next year to say, hey, all right, this year, this is what I'm gonna accomplish, right? Nor doesn't matter how big or small it is. I had a plan to pay my home off. Bam, boom. Worked very hard the whole year. Was able to accomplish that, right? Um,
Hey.
yeah, I know, right? So, worked very hard to accomplish that for my age anyway, to grow, just to grow, right? I just want to grow, find a way to succeed. Um, and one thing I really learned about money is that, and doesn't matter the amount of money that you have in the bank, you make less money on it in the
Mm,
long run, just letting it sit in the bank versus investing the money, doing something with it. It doesn't matter if it's, the stock market kind of sucks right now, but it's growing, right? It doesn't matter
mm.
if it's an investment property. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're doing something to make money with your money, right? That's the only way you're gonna continue to grow and make some money, man.
I completely agree. Congratulations on paying off your home, number one, because that is
Thank you,
like
thank you.
that's my goal now. That's where I am now.
Yeah,
But I completely resonate and agree with that. Like being able to learn lessons from money and understand very clearly that my money just sitting in the bank is doing nothing. Like it's not adding any value. If anything, it's losing value because it's just sitting there. So I think for me, one thing that I've learned as I've made resolutions every year for my finances as my, tax bracket has increased over
yeah,
time, is being able to always be humble about my dollars and my cents. Like I pride myself on always being a good steward and understanding that although my tax bracket has changed, my stewardship hasn't.
true.
And being able to be in a place where I'm a bit more comfortable, a bit more empowered because of my increase, I really focus on like intentional discipline when it comes to my funding, intentional discipline when it comes to my spending, when it comes to my money, and understanding that every dollar has its own value, that every deliverable that I need to execute comes with setting boundaries on every dollar, comes with being
Yep.
able to have breaks in my spending, but also like having a habit of finding balance. I used to be the type like, oh, I just want to pay this off, pay this off, pay this off, pay this off. And I had paid some things off and I was like, man, I'm getting rid of all my good debt. And
Yeah,
understanding that there's leverage in debt and that there's some debt that's good debt, I was just like, you know what? It's about taking breaks. So for me, especially like talking with my husband, this morning we were talking about something that we have been working toward and that we're at a place where we're like at the cup's end of paying it off and getting it done. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
what's next? What are we gonna pay next? And he's like, let's take a break. And I'm like, okay, let's take a month break. We can take a month break, enjoy what we have, enjoy that little freedom, that little break, but get back to building onto something else and making your dollars, worthy of their value outside of what you just received and spending.
yeah.
So for me, my question for you is, do you ever set boundaries, have any breaks or balance with your spending or your financial mindset?
Yeah. So, um, once I accomplish a goal, I take a break. Right. I know I know you should. A lot of people say you should continue to roll till you accomplish everything. Right. But man, you work so hard to accomplish something. Right. You gotta celebrate the little stuff as much as the little wins as much as you celebrate the big wins, because all the little wins is what accomplished makes all the bigger wins so great, right? It's the baby steps. So it can be anything, either going out to eat, it can be, or just relaxing that day, right? It can be a host of things, man. Like what? Because if you're working every day just trying to accomplish a goal, and you accomplish one goal, and you get to take a mental day, right? Which is very important, as you have brought up in your stories before, in your timeline before, right? So yeah, I feel like when you accomplish a goal, you should take a break, to reset, recalculate, and how you're gonna approach the next goal.
I agree. I think that's where you find the balance.
True,
Because if you continue going, 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 then you get burnt out.
true,
And I believe you can get burnt out in anything. You can get burnt out in spending. You can get burnt out in savings. You can get burnt out. And I mean, we all have this one life to live. And because we have this one life to live, what's the point of working hard if you're not going to enjoy it?
I very
So
much agree.
yes, I believe it's definitely important to find breaks in your spending, to find balance in your spending and enjoy it, because I mean, you can't take it with you, you know?
No, you can't. You just gotta enjoy it while you're on the earth, right?
You got to enjoy it. And although like a lot of people will equate like wealth to a dollar sign,
Mm,
for me, I've come to learn that it's not always about the dollars and cents. It's not always about the dollar sign, but it's about what I instill in my children that I'm leaving behind.
true.
So I completely agree with that. So we're actually getting to like the feel good part of the conversation. We've talked about overcoming our own like generational burdens as it comes with finances and our relationship with finances, the dollars versus cents from the man's perspective and even from the women's perspective, but also like understanding that it's okay to find balance in, goal setting, to find breaks in, setting resolutions and accomplishing goals. To kind of wrap up, when we get to the approach of everything, I have understood greatly that money management, financial literacy is a lifestyle.
True.
It's not something that comes natural. It's something that you have to work at, regardless of where your starting point is, like we kind of talked about. And as you mentioned, the goalposts and extending the goalposts for the next generation, I think it's important that as you mature in your mindset, that you have a financial foundation that you leave, and not financial foundation in that you're leaving just dollars and cents, but that you leave a wealth of knowledge on how to build wealth. And the best way, and truly for me, the only way to build wealth and establish wealth is ownership. And having something that has your name on it, having a deed that you can say you own and can leverage. And these are things that as a collective empowers a person. It empowers your money moves. It empowers your every dollar is spent, your every dollar and cent. It empowers your spending power and even your capital. So as we kind of wrap up, I'm interested to get like your insight in what financial foundation or like key principles do you have that you have passed down that have aided in your own wealth building?
One thing I was taught young when I first started making some money was don't live above your means, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Just live within your budget, because you got to have a budget, right? But also invest, man. Just the money not making nothing. You're making the bank money when it's in the bank versus making yourself
Mm-hmm.
money, right?
Yeah.
So don't live above your means and invest.
Yeah. I remember when I called you after like my first big like
Yeah,
tax elevation and break. And that was the first thing that came out of your mouth. Like, okay, now you need to make sure you live within the same means. Don't live above your means. And I was
yeah,
like, but we need to celebrate. And you was like, okay, you can celebrate, but don't live above your means. So that is something that's like repetitive to me,
yeah,
and repetitive in something that I practice and instill. I was sharing that, like, my daughter, my teenager, worked over spring break. And for her, like, her outlook on money and earning her own money this time around is like completely different than just a couple of months ago. Like you can see her
yeah.
you can see her maturity in just a couple of weeks. When it's
It's
my money, when it's
yeah,
quick money that she's made from doing hair or, from baking, then she has no problem with spending it. But
yeah,
now that she's had to, work these 3 weeks and earn a paycheck, oh, sis not spending no money.
yeah. I can see that.
Sis money in the bank, making the bank money. Sis ain't spending no money.
I can see that. I can see that. Spend parents' money. Don't spend my money. Yeah, I got it.
Yes. Sis not spending no money. She making the bank money. And I think now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, it's time for you to do something different. Like your bank account look good, but you need to make your money make some. You need to assign some
Do
assignments and
something with it, right?
responsibilities to these diamonds, shit, to these dollars.
Yeah,
Assign some assignments to these assets. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
So the final question, and how we always wrap up every episode, is to make sure that our audience has a takeaway, something to hold on to keep with them, and to just apply to their everyday life, whether they complete the episode, watch it again, and share with a friend, or something that has stood out to them that they want to be able to remind themselves of. What would be your final thought and testament for today?
Um, Invest your money, have fun, live your life, right? Don't stress. We all make mistakes with money. Just the way you just learn and grow. Just continue to learn and grow with the money, man.
Like that. That's a good final takeaway.
Yeah.
I think for me, my takeaway would be to always understand that all dollars and cents spend the same,
Yeah.
but they'll never leverage the same unless you do something with them. So assigning tasks to every dollars and cent, have a budget, but also have a means and a way to make your money make money for you and find balance in doing it. So,
Yep.
okay. Well, that is the conclusion of our actual episode. This has been a great kind of just candid conversation. And I truly appreciate you just for being a part and for rocking with me and for sharing your insight. Because I
Yeah,
find
very
that
welcome.
it's always good to have a man's perspective on the platform, but have someone that's lived it and has done it themselves and have been able to apply it.
Of course, of course, of course. It was fun. It was fun. It was real nice.
All right, thank you. I have a couple of announcements for our audience. So, of course, a couple of things are continuing to go on with the platform itself. We are going to be wrapping up this series of health, wellness, and wholeness on April the 30th with another talk guest that's going to be discussing with us riches versus wealth. So, you definitely want to stay tuned and stay engaged for that. We also have our Community Empower issue 3, volume 1 that is going to be released this month as well. The last Tuesday of the month will be the digital copy release. And then thereafter, that Friday is when we will have the mail out to begin for our printed copies. So I am actually going to be sharing a little behind the scene footage from the photo shoot this evening about 8 o'clock. So you guys make sure you stay connected to check that out. And I'm so excited because I'm just going to be very clear. Tequila, our resident photographer, she did a thing. Like, she definitely did her thing on this one. So I'm excited to be able to share that with you guys. And then as the summer rolls around and comes in, we will be having, of course, our Mother's Day special, Father's Day special as well. And this year we're going to be having a day of solitude for men. So I look forward to talk partner Kenneth Parker hosting that and having some of his guy friends to be a part of that. I anticipate our guests will definitely be getting the invitation to be a part of that so that he can have his break in financial literacy and building his empire. And also some really good news that I've been working on that I'm excited to share a little bit about is our Minority Mental Health Symposium. This year, we are collaborating and partnering with 2 churches in the community. And I am excited to be able to get the word and the news out about that. So please, please, please stay tuned. The official date is going to be July 8th. And it is going to not only be a symposium, but a wellness fair as well. So make sure that you stay tuned for details. I'll be releasing more insight on that within the next couple of weeks. And then the official flyer will be in the Community Empower magazine. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, ongoing things that we have is our visionary planner. If you have not purchased your planner, there is a wealth management guide in there, a place for you to write down all of your expenditures, your income, have goals that you want to set for yourself, all in one place on top of just traditional goal setting, accountability, and self-care. So definitely head over to our link bio. Excuse me. I'm thinking about New Orleans already. I'm thinking about my break that's coming up. To our link bio, which is in our IG page profile, to make your purchase, whether it be for the single purchase calendar or for the box set. And then, of course, our visionary retreat. Though it may be a little far out in December, we have already started the planning process, and we will be hosting another interest meeting pretty soon. So more details to come on that. As always, I encourage you to stay connected via our social media platforms, including Instagram, which is our home platform, which is JAYKC Marketing, on YouTube, which where this actual episode and all of our podcast episodes are housed is on our YouTube channel at JAYKC Podcast. And then, of course, you're able to follow us on Facebook now as well. And on Facebook, that is JAY Ken Cole, KENCOLE Marketing LLC. Link bio has everything there, and you can also find that here. So make sure that you stay connected, like, share, follow, and subscribe. Outside of that, thank you for spending time with us this evening, for sharing your evening with us on Sunday. And as always, we encourage you to keep talking. Have a good evening, everybody.